My name is Emily. I was 15 when I met John. He was new in my school and everyone was curious about him. He had brown hair and striking blue eyes, the kind of eyes that made you want to dive in and never come out. But what made him stand out even more was his kindness. From the very first day, I could tell he was different. He had this way of looking at people like they mattered. I remember the day he walked into the classroom. It was a bright Monday morning, and the sun streamed through the windows, lighting up the room. He introduced himself shyly, and as he scanned the classroom, his eyes landed on me for a brief moment. I quickly looked away, feeling a blush creep up my cheeks. John was seated next to me, and as the weeks went by, we started talking. At first, it was just small things: homework, school projects, the latest gossip about teachers. But soon, our conversations grew deeper. He told me about his family, his dreams, and his fears. He had moved to our town because his father got a job at the local factory. His mom stayed home taking care of his younger sister, Lily, who was just 5 years old. John loved to draw. He always carried a small notebook with him, and during breaks he would sketch. One day, I asked him what he was drawing, and he showed me a picture of the tree outside our classroom. It was so detailed and beautiful that I could hardly believe he had drawn it. From that day on, I often sat beside him while he sketched, admiring his talent. The school was abuzz with excitement as the annual dance approached. It was the event of the year, and everyone was talking about who they would go with. My friends teased me, saying I should ask John. "He's always around you, Emily," said my best friend, Clara. "I bet he'd say yes." I laughed it off, but deep down, the thought excited me. One afternoon, as we were sitting under the tree where John loved to sketch, I gathered my courage. "Are you going to the dance?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He looked up from his notebook and smiled. "I don't know. Dances aren't really my thing." My heart sank a little, but I quickly said, "Well, if you decide to go, maybe we could go together." He stared at me for a moment, then nodded. "I'd like that." The night of the dance was magical. The school gym was decorated with twinkling lights and colorful streamers. I wore a pale blue dress, and my mom helped me curl my hair. When I saw John waiting outside my house, my heart skipped a beat. He looked so handsome in his suit, and he had a small bouquet of wildflowers for me. At the dance, we laughed, danced, and talked for hours. It felt like we were the only two people in the room. When a slow song started playing, he took my hand and led me to the dance floor. As we swayed to the music, he whispered, "Thank you for asking me to come tonight. This is the best night I've had in a long time." After the dance, John and I became inseparable. We spent the entire summer together exploring the town, having picnics by the lake, and watching the stars. He taught me how to sketch, and I taught him how to bake cookies. We shared our dreams. I wanted to be a writer, and he wanted to become an architect. One evening, as we sat by the lake, he handed me a sketch. It was a picture of me, sitting under the tree where we always met. "I drew this for you," he said. "You've been my inspiration." I was speechless. Tears filled my eyes as I hugged him tightly. In that moment, I realized I was in love. As summer ended, reality began to set in. John's father lost his job, and his family was struggling. They decided to move to another city to start fresh. When he told me, I felt like my world was falling apart. "I don't want to leave, Emily," he said, his voice breaking, "but I don't have a choice." We promised to stay in touch, writing letters and calling whenever we could. But deep down, we both knew it wouldn't be easy. The day John left was one of the hardest days of my life. We stood at the train station, holding hands and trying not to cry. He gave me his sketchbook, saying, "I want you to have this. Whenever you miss me, just look at it." As the train pulled away, I waved until he was out of sight. My heart felt heavy, but I held on to the hope that we would meet again. Life went on. But not a day passed that I didn't think about John. We wrote letters for a while, but as time went on, they became less frequent. I poured my feelings into my writing, using our memories as inspiration for my stories. Years later, I published my first book, a romance novel called Under the Tree. It became a bestseller, and readers often asked if it was based on a true story. I would smile and say, "Yes, it's inspired by someone very special." 10 years later, I was at a book signing in a small city. As I signed copies for my readers, I noticed a man standing at the back of the room. He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. When he finally came up to the table, my heart stopped. It was John. "I read your book," he said, smiling. "It's beautiful." We spent hours catching up. He had become an architect, just like he always dreamed, and he still loved to draw. He showed me a picture he had sketched of the tree where we first met. "Do you ever think about us?" he asked. "All the time," I replied, tears in my eyes. John and I decided to give our love a second chance. It wasn't easy, but we were determined to make it work. We realized that some loves are worth fighting for, no matter how much time has passed. As I sit under that same tree today, watching John sketch, I feel grateful. Our journey wasn't perfect, but it brought us back to each other. And that, I believe, is the beauty of true love.